Hi, I'm Art Bergeron, and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here in Southborough. If you have not seen this show before, my name is Art Bergeron, and I am my day job is as an elder law attorney at Myrick O'Connell up the street in Westborough. I do nothing but elder law, but this is not about elder law. It's about my friends Frank and Mary. If you've seen my presentations at the Senior Center, you know that Frank and Mary's goal in life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if that sounds like what you want to do, this is the show for you. The goal of this show is to present the people that you need to know and the programs that you need to know about in order to stay right here in Southborough for the rest of your life. Now, with me is my co-host, Doug Peck, who has been living in Southborough for ages now, and we've been doing this show for several years. And Doug always finds these terrific guests, and this is perhaps is a new face for you, but maybe not. So, Doug, can you talk about who we have today?
Yes, thank you, Arthur. It's good to see you again. We have Sarah Cassell. Sarah is the director of Southborough's Youth and Family Services. It's, I think, a hidden gem in Southborough. It's a small department, but it's a really important department. I mean, we've spent a lot of time here talking about physical health. I had Sherry Keating on last time, talking about diabetes, pre-diabetes, nutrition. I mean, we've done a lot of that with Parkinson's, with Alzheimer's disease, just trying to get people acquainted to the resources that are available for them for these type of things. This is really about mental health, or sometimes people call it behavioral health. And it's becoming more and more important, particularly for seniors, because of the last 2 years, COVID has been really a disaster for a lot of seniors. It's just, they've isolated themselves more, and rightly so. Certainly it took us a year to get a vaccine, and it's been very, very hard for people to recoup from that, but also the anxiety is still there. So I want to introduce Sarah. She can tell us a little bit about her department, where it is, and what are the type of things that she can do for Southborough residents as a town department. So these are free services to people here. People really need to know, how they can get help.
I think
So
one
Sarah,
of the most
let me turn it
important.
over to you. Sorry.
I was just going to say one of the most important things. She's a hidden gem, especially for folks who hear the words youth and family services, and they're like,
Right.
well, my kids are gone. Is that me?
Yeah.
So which is kind of a surprise to a lot of people. So thank you
Right.
very, very much, Doug, for bringing Sarah on, and thank you very much, Sarah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having us. And you're absolutely right. That's something we hear time and time again is there's a lot of folks who don't know we exist, and a lot of misinformation about what we do in the community. So we really appreciate any opportunity to share information about our services. And so despite our name, Youth and Family Services, we serve residents of all ages. There's a lot of history about youth and family service departments that I have tried to uncover. And apparently one thing I've learned over time is that it's very difficult to change the name of our department. There's often been an interest in doing so because it's a little misleading. So yes, we do serve residents of all ages here in Southborough. And like Doug said, we provide mental health support services, and we also provide social services, so helping connect people to public assistance programs. So I'm happy to outline those a little bit more in depth if you think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for people to understand sort of what you can do, what your group can do, and what are the type of referrals? Are we looking at stress, anxiety, addiction, alcoholism, things like that?
Sure.
And if you could also relate it to what interactions you may have had with the folks at the Senior Center,
Yeah, absolutely.
So because I think the audience, our audience, are primarily folks who are older, and who are still probably pretty nervous about COVID, and have probably had two really terrible years. So
Yeah.
To give them a sense of the basically their tax dollars at work,
Sure, sure.
and how they can be, how you can be of help. That would be really great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So to highlight the three different categories of services we provide, we have mental health support services, need-based services, which is sort of the social service, public assistance programs, and then prevention programs. So the mental health services, a little more in depth, we consider those bridge services. We are a department that needs to be responsive to the whole community, and there's a lot of complex needs that we're seeing. And so our mental health support services are called bridge services because we can't afford to wait to connect people to a mental health provider right now, because even before the pandemic, trying to identify an appropriate mental health provider for yourself or your loved one takes time. It's hard to find openings. There's a lot of variables for each individual, what type of therapy they're looking for, the time of day, the insurance, etc. And in the meantime, things can get worse or become more acute over time. And so that's where our department steps in and provides bridge services. So we employ 2 licensed mental health counselors in our office, and then we also on an annual basis bring on graduate level clinicians who provide those services. And in the meantime, we also, Southborough is very fortunate to have a contract with something called Interface Referral Service. Hopefully, maybe one of the 2 of you have heard of Interface. If not, this is through William James College. It's a contract that we have with them, and it's a full-time helpline for Southborough residents to call in, and they share their search criteria. And if they're not sure of their search criteria, they can also get assistance with figuring out what it is they need, because the folks at Interface are also clinicians themselves. And they will help figure out what type of therapy or maybe fine tune, who should be going to therapy, whether it's parents, family, an individual. At any rate, Interface will help with identifying an appropriate provider. So they help with that search, which is really critical right now because, as I highlighted, it's increasingly difficult to find an opening, and an opening with somebody that's a good fit.
So I have
yeah.
a question. So I'm going to go for some basics. Where are you located?
Sure.
And do you do these services in person or, on Zoom like this? Oh, and talk a little bit about the confidentiality, because people, I think, are really concerned about, are people going to know that that I'm seeking these services, etc.
Sure. Yes, where we're located is important. So we're at 21 Highland Street. We're in the same building with one other department, the recreation department, who's down the hall from us. So very intentionally, we're in a different space than a lot of the other buildings or departments rather. And we do provide in-person services as well as online. So whatever somebody's comfortable with. We do have to, confer with the Board of Health. So there has been a couple of instances where we've been completely online despite people's preferences. But right now we are offering in-person and online.
Okay.
And trying to remember the other piece. Oh, and confidentiality. You're absolutely right, is a really critical piece to talk about. So despite the fact that we're a town department, we operate just like any other outpatient mental health provider. All of our services are confidential. No one has access to, except for staff internally here, to know who is coming in to see us and what they're coming for. We, we're all licensed mental health providers, so we have to abide by our, the license requirements for the state. So despite the fact that we're a town department, there's no
Plus
one has
HIPAA
access to it.
regulations, right?
Yeah.
So what would be an example of, suppose somebody comes in to you, or calls you up and says, I really would like to talk to you about whatever. What would it typically be, maybe for a senior or somebody a little bit older? And give me an example of what the introduction would be like. What do you do on a first meeting type of thing?
Sure. I'd love to highlight too how people can reach out to us for the first time. We're trying to cater to a lot of different ways that people like to communicate. So we provide walk-in hours. So twice a week, people can walk into our office at any point during our office hours, but they can count on meeting with a clinician within a half an hour of their arrival on Monday mornings, 9 to 11, and Thursdays, 3 to 5.
Okay.
That's something new that we've started offering just this past year. They can also call us, and one of our clinicians will call back, or they can they can let us know they're interested in our services through our website. We have a web inquiry form. And so then what happens is we follow up with them with a phone call to learn more about what they're looking for. And then we kind of evaluate based off of what they're looking for, what the best course of action would be for them. So I haven't really highlighted some of the more nuanced services we have within mental health. So sometimes we have just what is called a consultation, which I actually think is incredibly valuable, because a lot of times people just want to have a conversation with a mental health professional without having to commit to therapy. And that's not something you can necessarily easily do unless you have a friend or a relative who you can count on. But maybe that's not the best person to call because they're not necessarily objective. So you can just call and have a consultation with one of our clinicians here. We also provide assessments, which is to say that for 6 to 8 sessions, we put our detective hats on. And so we meet with individuals, we meet with family members, we, if we're talking about a school-age child, we might be observing them in the classroom, we might be talking to doctors. And so we're doing everything we can to collect information and try to more accurately identify the presenting issue. And then we make clinical recommendations after that.
Okay.
And then if it's counseling services we're offering, those are, again, that's where we talk about the bridge services. And so if that's the direction that we're heading in, we invite somebody in for a first time appointment. And then we take it from there.
Okay.
We do utilize treatment plans. So we establish goals with people and we check back in on those goals regularly, so that we can make sure that what they came to us for, what their presenting complaint was, we try to address it.
So somebody could come in and just say, or call you and just say, I'm just feeling either very depressed or very anxious. And then, they don't have a diagnosis for themselves, obviously. It's just, that's the way I've been feeling. And then you would take it from there. But my other part 2 of that question is, but there's no necessarily commitment, right? You would like to see if there's something serious that they would continue, but it's not like once I go here, I'm into a whole big program thing.
No, in fact, that's why I want to make sure I highlight that we're a bridge service.
Okay.
So it would not be a commitment. In fact, along the way, as we learn more about an individual and what their needs are, we might make a recommendation that they need longer term, more intensive services than we can provide. And so that's when we would be encouraging them to contact Interface Referral Service to try to find a provider for a longer term sustainable support. And we'll support them in the meantime. And we do a lot of symptom management. We try to manage any higher level needs, around safety, if we ever have concerns about that. And we support people until they get in to see someone else.
Okay. But as a mental health professional, are you capable of providing prescriptions or medication?
We are not.
Okay.
But again, one of the nice things about Interface is that if you are in need of psychiatry services, then they will help with that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And how do the folks who come to see you how would they relate to? I always think of Bay Path Elder Services as being kind of the comprehensive place that you would go if you were a senior. You got a whole variety of questions. So would they, if folks had questions regarding broadly mental health or counseling issues, would you be a more appropriate place for those folks to come as opposed to going to Bay Path? I'm just trying to understand how you think of the players and how they interact.
Sure. Well, certainly, if you have general questions, we often get asked the question, is this normal? Should I be concerned? When does it cross over into, an area of concern? We can speak, that's where our consultation services come into play, that we certainly can talk to you more generally about yourself, your loved one, what to look for, what are signs of emotional distress versus what's sort of typical for the human experience. So certainly that's exactly what our consultation services would be available for.
That's really terrific, because I think for so many people who have gone through the last 2 years, it's nice to have somebody that you can say, well, am I normal?
Right.
I mean, am I losing my grip, or is this just something that everybody is going through right now?
Right,
And just to have some third party professional saying, well, you may want to think about thus and so, but a lot of this is happening to a lot of people. That could be a really useful thing for a whole lot of folks.
Yeah.
Right.
And
emotions in a confidential setting,
Yeah. And somebody who's not your family member, not a friend, really, really helpful. And certainly, answering that question of, is this normal, has become increasing. The target keeps moving, right? Because like you said, we're all going through that. But yeah, we're happy to, chat with folks about what they're experiencing. And often we're looking at changes in behavior, a person's functioning. So we're all born with emotions and mental health. We're all on the spectrum somewhere. How do you know when it has crossed over from what's part of human experience to something to be concerned about? And typically we're looking at how is your quality of life? And how are you functioning? Are you able to keep relationships? Are you able to get out of bed in the morning? Those sorts of things. So there's a lot of assessment that goes into that. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah. And I just think this is so unusual for us, relatively small town like Southborough, to have this kind of service available. That's why I wanted to make sure people really had a chance to meet Sarah and get a little bit of a sense of, what they can do. I think of it sort of as the emergency department. I mean, you can call them and ask them, is this, just as you said, is this normal? Is this, what's going to happen? What can happen next? Because you want to prevent a crisis. We don't want anybody, in crisis mode. If you're feeling something, and mental health has been one that's really been pushed under the rug for a long time. But it's becoming more open now. And I think it's a wonderful thing.
I'd love to highlight too that we have a whole category of services called prevention programming, in which case we are trying to think upstream and stay ahead of challenges so we don't get to the point of being in crisis. We do have some really great training opportunities for people on what to look for in each other and how to take care of one another. Because as I said at the top of our conversation, we can't afford to wait for an opening with a mental health provider. And so we have a QPR, which stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer. which is a suicide prevention training. We have some really great, we have a training called Listen with Love, which is on communication, how to talk with your loved ones, how to encourage them to keep talking, how to get your own needs met in a relationship, which, you know, another thing that COVID has impacted is how much time we've spent with our family members and how taxing that has been on our relationships. You know, so those are some other really great programs I'd love to highlight. And I would say too, that if we get to the point of a crisis, an emergency, there's some really great services in town that help respond to that. We also do safety assessments, you know, so if somebody wanted to contact us and say, you know, my loved one has just shared that they're suicidal, we need somebody to meet with today. And that's another reason why we use our bridge service model, because we take a lot of pride in the fact that we most often have immediate openings for people. We need to move them on to long-term services if that's what they need, but that enables us to respond quickly to things that come up that are urgent.
Great.
And when you talk about the preventive services that you're doing, do you do any of that in the form of classes or of I see. Yep. And so, and if folks wanted to kind of find out what was available, how would they do that? If they were wanting to find out about classes or any other information? Sure.
So we actually, I didn't answer this question when you asked it, but you had asked about our relationship with the senior center. We have a very nice working relationship with the staff at the senior center, and we do share information with them and ask them to post that in the senior center, share it out through their channels of communication. We have a whole sort of arsenal of ways that we try to get information out, some of it online, some of it hard copy. We actually, when Doug had approached me about being on the show, I shared that for a period of time, we had done our own online show to try to also get information out to people, because we've really had to get creative with how we connect with folks. So I would say, you know, if you're, you know, someone who is a senior in town who frequents the senior center, you have questions about it, you can certainly talk to the staff there. We have a fantastic working relationship. My guess is that they would encourage this person to give us a call, and that we would start a relationship with them directly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they were trying to call you or connect with you directly, can you just, and I'm sure that our folks at SAM will provide a banner that gives you give the information, but can you just give a phone number?
Yes. Our phone number is 508-481-5676. And we do have office hours. Something new this year, which has been fantastic for us. We have a full-time administrative assistant, Christina, who's lovely, we actually have someone to answer the phones now, which is great. So you can count on, if you call during our office hours, you can count on talking to somebody. And
which is really important if you're dealing with mental health issues.
Yes.
You're not talking to a black box.
I know it.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I'd love to just really quickly put in a plug for our need-based services too.
Okay.
I didn't really go into detail about that. I will say, you know, this is another area that we partner with the senior center on. So there's certain public assistance programs that are available to seniors specifically that we would encourage you to reach out to Cindy Beard at the senior center for some of those. But we also have a number of programs available here that we help people apply for fuel assistance, for SNAP benefits. We have emergency funds available, which is a grant that we share with the senior center. So just want to make people aware that those services exist also.
Good.
Great. That's great. And once again, it's something that I think to Doug's point, a lot of people wouldn't have thought to connect with you, right? I mean, you are one of those hidden gems.
Our name.
And that's really one of the purposes for this show. You know, if you're the Frank and Mary that's living at home and just kind of going about their lives, and you wouldn't automatically think, you know, here are some folks that could really help me. And then you just start saying to yourself, oh God, you know, I'm stuck in this hole, and what can I do? So this has been terrific. So, you know, thank you very, very much, Sarah, for doing this. Right.
Yeah, thank you for
And
having me.
this is a big, big help. And Doug, thank you always for finding these terrific guests in terms of helping Frank and Mary. So for folks, if you're watching, so the goal of this exercise is just to make you aware of all of that is available for you close, right? This isn't, these are services, these are your tax dollars at work. If you think you've got some issues that these folks can help with, or if you think a friend does, give them a call, you know, and once again, you don't have to be walking into town hall and everybody's yapping about while you're stopping by. Give them a call or stop by. I think they could be of really help. So Doug, thank you so much. Sarah, thank you so much. And folks, we'll look forward to seeing you on the next installment of Frank and Mary here in Southborough. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.